WWE Smackdown review and analysis video here on the official WrestleNews 365 YouTube channel. This week, Smackdown was live once again on Fox, this week in Evansville, Indiana at the Ford Center. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the show, let's have a little bit of talk about overall thoughts on the show. This was one of those sort of typical Fox Smackdowns that we've seen so far, in the sense that, you know, there were good parts on it, but some of it was just bizarre, and it felt like, especially in the modern day, now that you can watch a WWE show in essentially 5-10 minutes on YouTube the next day, this felt like one of those shows that if you missed it last night, you really didn't miss a lot, which is surprising considering we're heading into the Royal Rumble season. You think about what's coming up and what's on the horizon. We have heard reports that the WrestleMania card is still up in the air. It feels like the Royal Rumble card is still up in the air. Now, we got a few more confirmations on this show about who's going to be in the Rumble match itself, who's going to be competing in the men and female Rumble, matches that are going to happen at the Royal Rumble between Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns. But still, it just felt like one of these shows where, you know, not a lot really happened. We had a fun start with the Miz TV segment, but we had a lame finish to the show with the King Corbin-Roman Reigns feud that seems like it will never end. I mean, that feud just feels like it's lasting forever. And at this point, you know, who cares? You know, we had some fun stuff with the Miz and Morrison, but then it gets just overdone by this King Corbin gimmick that refuses to end anytime soon. And also surprising was that the main focus of this show should be the Universal Championship. You'd like to think heading into WrestleMania, the main focus of the show will be the Universal Championship. But the Universal Championship match at the Royal Rumble between Bray Wyatt, or The Fiend, and Daniel Bryan hardly got any looking really in this show. I mean, we had a couple backstage segments and promos, but that was it. Now, the counter-argument to that could be, what else can they do at this point? They seem to have hit their formula with The Fiend of him showing up and, you know, attacking people. The red light of doom comes on, and that's about it. So really, what more can they do? I think that explanation is lazy storytelling. They can always find something different to do. Even if they had Bryan just come out and work a match, or even cut a promo in front of the live crowd, that would be good. But to stick to backstage promos and backstage segments for them just feels like they can do more. They can do more. It feels that they've told their story that they want to tell a few weeks too early, because there's nothing else they would like to tell us in that story. There's nothing else they want to do heading into the Rumble regarding The Fiend and Bray Wyatt. They mentioned about the history between Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt tonight, which was a nice touch. They should do that more. But that was about it. So a strong start to the show that we'll get into shortly, but a bit of a weak finish. Last week's Smackdown I was highly positive and praised quite a lot. I thought last week's show was a very good show. This week they just didn't capitalise on any momentum that they had. And again, like I said, if I'm Fox, you know, we heard all this rumours about Fox wants sports-orientated programming. Sports-orientated programming. They wanted Paul Heyman. That's a well-known fact at this point. Fox wanted Paul Heyman for their show. They wanted Brock Lesnar. They wanted Ronda Rousey. We heard rumours about Daniel Cormier coming in to do colour commentary. And Fox paid $1 billion over, 5 years to have the rights to air SmackDown on their network. $1 billion. $1 billion. And what do they get? They get Kings, they get dog foods, they get Shorty G. I mean, they must be pulling their hair out. I mean, the Fiend can do it for him, because apparently that's what he's got a fetish to do nowadays, is rip people's hair out. But the executive at Fox must watch like last night's show and just go, oh, what is this? This isn't $1 billion programming. You know, it's not bad. It's not overly good either. It's average. And like I said, it's entirely missable. You could watch last night's show on YouTube in 10 minutes and you would have saved yourself 2 hours of your time. That's SmackDown. That's WWE in 2020. So let's get into some of the main talking points from last night's show. Firstly, the return of Robert Roode. Yes, 30 days have gone that quickly. To be honest, when there was rumours of that Roode was going to be returning last night. People were putting on social media, it's been 30 days, by the way, so Robert Roode's going to show up. I couldn't believe that it had been 30 days so quickly. Where did those 30 days go? WWE at this point is so entirely forgettable that we lost 30 days of time, 30 days of storytelling, and I don't think anything in particular, has happened in the Roman Reigns King Corbin feud. Yes, the Usos returned, but I mean, they were going to come back anyway at some point. That's not exactly breaking news, is it? I mean, I was stunned. 30 days, gosh, so quickly, and nothing happened. So before we had the match, the main event that was announced between the Usos and King Corbin and Dolph Ziggler, we had Roman Reigns come out. He came out. He says that isn't his career, that he's always had backup. I've always had backup, but this time he doesn't need the help of friends. He needs the help of family. We'll touch on this in a second, but just remember that line. He said that he needed the help of family. He had backup in terms of his family, them being the Usos. Now, he goes on to talk about 2020 is going to be his year. He says that he's going to win the Rumble and then main event WrestleMania for the 5th time, which is probably a shoot. The rumours are rampant that the only match that appears to be set in stone for WrestleMania is Roman Reigns facing the Fiend for the Universal Championship. The whole redemption story about him coming back from his illness and the main event in WrestleMania winning the title seems to be the direction that they're heading in. I think they need to be very wary of that. It's taken a lot to get Roman Reigns on the good graces of the fans. Now, he gets universally cheered most of the time now when he comes out. I think the moment you start forcing him down the fans' throats again, then they'll start booing. You've noticed that it's not just a Roman Reigns thing. It's not just a John Cena thing. They did the same thing with Seth Rollins. If you tell the fans what they have to like, they will rebel. It's not 1980 anymore. It's not 1985. You can't tell them what to do. You just can't. So they need to be wary. They need to be wary of that. So as he's talking about the backup of his family, Roman Reigns, he brings out the Usos. They talk about how King Corbin's been messing with their family, to which King Corbin interrupted them. And to be honest, I was glad of it. I thought the Vince Russos, the Usos, I tell you what, that's a tag team, the Vince Russos. Get a couple of people dressed up as Vince Russo. It's money, bro. The Usos come out, and instead they talk about family. Brings out King Corbin. I'm back on track now. Brings out King Corbin. I've just got the Russos in my head now. What a tag team the Russos could be, and how strange that would be, just having two Vince Russos in one place. Jim Cornette would literally explode, wouldn't he, if that actually happened? I'm getting way off track. King Corbin comes out. Gosh, King Corbin comes out and interrupts the Usos, and I was quite glad of it because the Usos are very good on the mic. They are one of the better tag teams on the mic. But I thought this was just awful. It just didn't resonate with me at all. And I don't think it was really resonating with the fans. It came across as overly scripted. And I know WWE promos in 2020 are overly scripted. So a lot of the promos are going to come across that. But the best performers can make it work. And I just didn't think this worked. And you know a promo's bad when you're glad that King Corbin's come out. Corbin then goes on about Roman Reigns being afraid to face him one-on-one. That's why he's got the Usos to help him. So this essentially sets up King Corbin facing Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. So they're going to be competing twice in one night, with Reigns competing against Corbin earlier on, and then both men appearing in the Rumble later on. This, to me, screams that we saw the same sort of thing happen with Becky Lynch last year, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if King Corbin and Roman Reigns opens the show. King Corbin goes over, so you've got to protect King Corbin, get that 50-50 booking in, and then later on in the evening, maybe Roman Reigns will win the Rumble. I'm not sure how that would go down in the arena. Like I said, you've got to be very, very careful with forcing Reigns down people's throats because the crowd won't like it and the crowd will react badly. You'd like to think WWE has learned their lesson at this point, but this is WWE and this is stubborn old man Vince McMahon again. So that's a conversation to have at a later date. Corbin calls the Usos Reigns' two bitches. The Usos dive on them and Corbin's minions. So we then get to the match, the main event, which was the Usos versus King Corbin and Ziggler. The Usos go to the top, which brings out the Revival to distract the Usos. But then Roman Reigns makes a second entrance, comes back out, and attacks the Revival. Now, this to me just seemed bizarre. Like, really bizarre. Why on earth wouldn't Roman Reigns just stay out there with his family? He's just done a promo saying about how family's so important, backups are important. His family are his backup. He's going to back them up. And what does he do once the match starts? He leaves. I mean, where's the logic there? I get they wanted to have the second entrance and the second pop, but just the storytelling there just made no sense, which seems to be the common theme with SmackDown recently, is that there are certain parts of it that just don't make any sense. Where was the sense of Roman Reigns deserting his family, abandoning his family once the actual combat started? Remember, you're trying to simulate a shoot fight here, but once the fight started, Roman Reigns decided, you know what, guys, you can handle this yourself, I'm going. Just, I mean, beyond bizarre. Anyway, he then stays in the corner, thankfully, of his family. The Revival disappear. Jimmy does a dive, but Corbin catches him, throws him into Roman Reigns, to which Roman Reigns then spears King Corbin for the disqualification. So after all of that, we got a DQ finish, because it's WWE, guys. Reigns goes to put King Corbin through the announce table, but then out comes Robert, I took a 30-day vacation Roode, who attacks Reigns, hits the glorious DDT on the floor. Corbin, Ziggler, and Roode attack the Uso and Reigns there. Robert Roode then goes for a spinebuster, sort of the Arn Anderson style spinebuster, or the double R spinebuster, if you want to call it that, to Reigns on the announce table, but the announce table doesn't break. After apparently that 30-day vacation has made Robert Roode slightly weaker. I wonder why. So the table doesn't break, but it does eventually after Ziggler hits an elbow drop through Roman Reigns on the table, and then that's the show. So this, again, just the match was nothing. So let's not even bother talking about the match, because there's nothing to analyse there. Now, it does make, from a storytelling point of view, I mentioned last week that obviously with the Usos coming back, that makes, Roman's 3, you need 3 to feud with. So King Corbin, before Robert Roode got suspended, had Ziggler and Roode as his little henchmen, his King's Court, if you will. So it makes sense having the 3-on-3. The match itself wasn't great. There was nothing there. Like I said, they need to be very, very, very careful about how hard they're going to push Roman again. Now, last night, his promo was a little bit grating for me. So if they push really hard, the fans are going to turn again. I have no doubt of that. Now, we know that we're going to have Reigns versus Corbin at the Rumble. I think there is a potential that they turn this into a 6-man, because then you can have Roman's team lose, but you don't actually have him eating the pinfall, because they're going to want to protect Roman Reigns going into WrestleMania, brother. He can't get pinned. It was good to have Robert Roode back, of course. That whole suspension thing does hang over you, though, for a while. Regardless, it always will. It always used to hang over Randy Orton. I mean, technically, Randy Orton's still on the second strike. If he got third, he'd get fired. I doubt it. Shockingly, he hasn't received a wellness violation since. I wonder why. But then again, you look no further than the other guy that was competing tonight, Roman Reigns. Remember, he did get busted a few years ago and then got punished with a United States Championship reign. Great punishment there. So, like I said earlier on, this feud seems like it's never going to end. Eventually, though, fans, the finish is in sight on this one. I can't see them feuding after the Royal Rumble. That would appear that's when Reigns is going to face off with the Fiend and start his program with the Fiend going into WrestleMania, as that's the only match that seems to be set in stone at this point. So the end is in sight with this just god-awful feud. And there's not really much more to say, is there, than that. It's nearly over. Last week we saw the return of John Morrison to WWE programming, but we officially got him in the ring here. Well, not competing, but we got him in the ring for an edition of Miz TV, hosted by The Miz. Miz came out, babyfacing it up, trying to get the crowd hyped, but then they recapped his actions last week of the WWE Universe turning on him when he faced Kofi Kingston. The crowd did boo him after realising that they should be booing him after his actions last week. He says that last week he was just having a bad day and that sometimes you don't want to smile, but he let the emotions get the best of him. He apologises, but he blames the Fiend. He says the Fiend's violated the sanctity of my home. He was, putting my family at risk. He was getting my daughter to play with voodoo dolls of the Fiend. But he says there's one bright spot, which was the return of someone that's like a brother to him, that being John Morrison, which brings out John Morrison. Old music and pyro and all, which was a nice sight to see, but no slow-mo entrance. I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it? You have the John Morrison music, you have the pyro, and then you have the slow-mo entrance with his hair blowing with the fan. And, they just didn't have the slow-mo entrance. I mean, I know we're nitpicking there, but, come on. That was a bit of a letdown. We've been waiting, 9 years to see that entrance again? You got no slow-mo? No. What a shame. The Miz presents a sizzle reel, which was smart for WWE to do. It was a little bit of a video package recap for John Morrison, which is smart because, realise John Morrison left in 2011. It's been, 8-9 years? So, whilst die-hard fans like you and I may... Of course, we know who John Morrison is. We've been a massive fan of John Morrison. We've seen his work post-WWE in Lucha Underground and Impact Wrestling and AAA and wherever he's been. But there's going to be the casual fans that have just started watching WWE that might not even have been alive in 2011. So, which feels like a mad sentence for me to even say, but it's true. So, the video package was really good as well, really well done. It made him feel like a really big deal. And was whatever was lacking last week when they were saying, that he just returned backstage with no pop. This video package, his entrance, all of it made John Morrison feel like a big deal and a big star. He talks about that he being John Morrison, pronouns pal, that he was going to be returning at the Royal Rumble. They said they had a WWE Chronicle documentary being made about him, new music, etc., etc. But he saw what happened last week, and he felt that he needed to be there for his best friend. So they almost tried to play away that his return last week was awful. Or just didn't set well with the fans. Which was, at least they're almost acknowledging that, I suppose. He says he's disappointed, ... in the WWE universe. He's disappointed that the fans John Morrison is. He says that The Miz has one bad day, and the WWE universe turns on him. And then he goes into The Miz being the hardest worker of the last decade, which, to be honest, I mean, that's pretty much a shoot, isn't it? The amount of work that Miz has done is what essentially made him WWE champion back in 2011 because of how hard, or 2010, because of how hard The Miz works. It's well known that The Miz's schedule is absolutely unbelievable in terms of, he'll be flying all over the place, making TV shows, making talk shows, doing press, doing Miz and Mrs., doing this, doing that. And he's not always been presented as the most amazing character on TV, but he's always done what's been asked of him. And he's always been a good soldier for the WWE. And probably he is the hardest worker of the last decade, really, for WWE. So as John Morrison's going off from the crowd, he says someone in the crowd is a douchebag or a turd, and he got bleeped for it. And I was just thinking, I've been watching a lot of 1997 WWE, especially Raw on the network, and they've had WWE superstars cursing their asses off, and in 2020 John Morrison's getting bleeped for saying douchebag or turd. I mean, that just made me so sad. So sad. That's what the WWE has become nowadays. Oh God, do you remember the good old days? Let's not even think about it, because it can make you pretty sad. Anyway, so as he's trashing the crowd, up come the New Day, Big E and Kofi Kingston, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, of course. Big E says that John Morrison, this was a great line, he said that John Morrison couldn't get cast as the back end of a human centipede. Now, he can say that. He can talk about the human centipede, which people are stitched together, when people are defecating in each other's mouths. That doesn't get bleeped. But John Morrison saying turd or douchebag does. I mean, talk about double standard here. Kofi Kingston goes off on The Miz, saying that The Miz should have just said he has a bad day. Shouldn't have blamed The Fiend for changing him. Which, I mean, the argument is I don't know. That argument for Kofi Kingston kind of went over my head of the logic there. But then the Miz starts mocking Kofi for losing the title in 6 seconds, and Kofi corrects him because no, it was 8 seconds. Like, oh, okay, sorry, that's 2 extra seconds. And he says that, you know, he really respects Kofi for holding the title for 6 months and losing it in 6 seconds, and he even respects Kofi even more for losing it and not caring about it. Which, to be honest, again, this did bug me, because I saw people on social media say, oh, isn't it good that, you know, people are finally talking about how it didn't bother Kofi that he lost the WWE Championship. It's not good that they're mentioning this, because every WWE promo is 100% scripted. There is no verbiage that doesn't get approved by Vince McMahon or a very, very, very high executive. Therefore, by them writing that verbiage and approving it, they realise that there's zero logic in Kofi Kingston not being annoyed that he lost the WWE Championship in 6 seconds and hasn't done anything about it. They realise there's no logic there, but they're going to put it in a promo to slap our faces with it. That's not good. That's not them going, oh, good, I'm glad people are talking about it. They realise it's stupid, but they've just decided to do nothing about it. It's dumb. So why rub our faces in it even more? Just, it's so frustrating and stuff like that. Anyway, Kofi says to The Miz that The Miz is changing, and the crowd was right about him. That The Miz does suck, as The Miz was obviously chanted, "You suck" at by the crowd last week. I thought this segment went maybe 2-3 minutes too long. They just sort of hit the music and went straight to commercial, because I think it overran slightly. The positive is that it made Morrison feel like a big star. Now, Morrison's work on the mic, there's something left to be desired. That's always been the case with John Morrison. The guy's 40 years old. I don't see it improving anytime soon. But the whole point with that tag team is that Morrison was the guy in the ring, Miz was the guy on the mic. I don't see that changing anytime soon. That's always been the dynamic in their team, and that's what they're going to stick to. But this whole video package and highlight of Morrison did make Morrison feel like a big star. That was the point of the segment, and it was the point of furthering this heel turn for The Miz and setting up this feud with the New Day. So I thought it did well, even if it was slightly too long. So once we come back from commercial, we have Kofi Kingston going up against The Miz, a rematch from last week. We had John Morrison and the Big E on commentary, who were good, and they were doing a lot of back and forth throughout the match, and just basically talked crap to each other for the whole time, with no Corey Graves and Michael Cole, which some might say is an improvement. Okay, I'm not going to be that guy, but yeah. But the only problem with it, and I think WWE did realise it, or whoever was backstage did realise it, is that when Morrison and Big E were just going off on each other, there was zero play-by-play going on. The match was sort of playing on the screen, but you just had two guys just trash-talking each other. He made a good point, John Morrison, when he was saying about, well, when Kofi Kingston's family was mocked by Randy Orton at SummerSlam, Kofi got angry. So what's the difference here between Bray Wyatt and The Miz? And they didn't respond to that, because that's logic. WWE hates logic, of course. He talked up as well, John Morrison, about Kofi not giving Big E a WWE Championship opportunity when Kofi was champion, and Big E brushed that off. I like that. I doubt that's where they're going with it. I doubt it's a Big E turn coming. Oh my God, Big E heel turn confirmed. He's going to turn on the New Day. That's probably just John Morrison just throwing stuff out there. But you never know. It might be a seed planted. I doubt it, though. Like I said, they went to another ad in the middle of the match, and Morrison and Big E were off commentary and just sort of standing in their partners' corners at this point. Probably intended, but it helped because we could actually have some play-by-play on the match, because the match just felt like a secondary thought at this point. The Miz worked over the knee of Kingston, locked in the figure 4 leg lock. We had Big E talking trash to the Miz on the outside, and then John Morrison hit this sort of parkour spinning flip off the ring steps onto Big E, which was nuts. One, that he landed it on his feet. John Morrison's in jeans and boots. He's not even in wrestling boots. He looked like snakeskin boots. It lands on his feet. I don't even think his sunglasses came off. That's how unbelievable John Morrison is. When I say he's the guy in the ring, I'm no joke. So while this is happening, Kofi's distracted, which allows the Miz to hit the skull crushing finale and gets the win. I thought this was a good finish. Morrison hit that move in jeans, like I said, which is nuts. The Miz and Morrison are just a great team. They're just a great team. They complement each other so well, and they've improved greatly since they last teamed up. So I think this is just a positive, and I'm really interested to see where they're going. It's different television, which makes it compelling. Obviously, the problem with WWE is that with so many hours of television to fill every single week, it feels like we've seen everything a million times. So to see something that's different and new, or that we haven't seen for a while, is good and keeps your interest up. The match itself was just about getting Miz and Morrison more over and feel like a star tag team attraction. The match itself was nothing much, but I like the repairing of Miz and Morrison. Maybe this is going towards a New Day versus Miz and Morrison tag title match at the Rumble, which I would like to see. And to be honest, we've seen the New Day as a tag team champions. I don't see any reason why you would keep the titles on them, to be honest, at this point. If you're going to have a tag title match between them and Miz and Morrison, put the titles on Miz and Morrison, because they're what people are interested in. They're the shiny new toy now that John Morrison's back. They're the one that people are going to be interested in. Put the titles on them. Push them as like a big tag team that can actually, split off into single stars whenever they want to, but they're always together. I think that's what they should do. I think they're definitely going towards a match at the Royal Rumble. John Morrison's set to make his in-ring return next week against Big E on SmackDown, which would be interesting to see. It looks to me from his little bit of action that he had in this match that he hasn't missed a step. So I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed, it wasn't perfect, but it's different, and that's good, especially in WWE nowadays. So we had another Firefly Funhouse segment here tonight. Bray Wyatt comes on and tells the Fireflies that I love you. He says that he being the Fiend, feels the opposite of love about Daniel Bryan. Says that Daniel Bryan has been naughty, real freaking naughty, which was a really nice and bizarre throwback to a line from Dodgeball. If that rings any bells, that's Ben Stiller's character in Dodgeball who says that. I don't have any idea why Bray Wyatt would throw that into a Firefly Funhouse promo, but it was tremendous. I mean, I'm not sure how many people would have got it, but I like those things where you just sort of go, why has he said that? I thought it was great. He sort of explains the rationale behind the Fiend attacking Daniel Bryan, which is nice. It's nice to have a bit of logic here. So he says that he being the Fiend, wanted Daniel Bryan to remember, and they showed a clip of Daniel Bryan, of course, being part of the Wyatt family in early 2014, when Daniel Bryan outsmarted Bray Wyatt, infiltrated the Wyatt family, turned on him inside the steel cage, and they had their tremendous match at the Royal Rumble that year. Then he says he wanted to change Daniel Bryan, which then they cut to the clips of the Fiend pulling the hair out of Daniel Bryan's head and beard, apparently, and he says that now he just wants to hurt Daniel Bryan. So I thought that was nicely done. The pop that the Firefly Funhouse got when it first came on was a good pop, considering the crowd was, again, this is WWE main TV nowadays, pops, or the crowd just tends to sit on its hands. But the Firefly Funhouse itself got a good pop when it started up. They did throw back to that amazing Raw moment when Daniel Bryan finally got his hands on Bray Wyatt inside the steel cage, and the whole crowd was chanting yes and just going crazy. For me, especially in modern WWE history, it's an iconic Raw moment. The crowd was red hot for Daniel Bryan at that point. Just red hot for Daniel Bryan. And WWE tends not to embrace their history enough when it comes to telling stories. They've started to do it more and more with the likes of Becky Lynch last year with Asuka. They've told the story that she hasn't been able to beat her. They did it last year with Kofi Kingston and Randy Orton, going back to the stupid moment on Raw in 2009. So they've started to do it more and more because those stories are great and they're natural. Of course, people are going to feud with each other 5 years ago, and then because it just is how many combinations can you do, they're going to end up feuding with each other again. But you might as well embrace the history when you do that. You can tell a story through their previous interactions. So why not? Why not? It explains the story, and it's a story built in. It's something you don't have to try too hard to do. And it explained the Fiend's intentions as specifically why he's gone after Bryan. A lot of the time, with him just attacking random people, you're like, oh, the Fiend's just attacking random people. But when they explain the reason why, it adds that layer of logic to the storytelling, which for me, maybe for other people it doesn't matter. For me, that matters. It has to make sense for me in terms of the story. So this was a story they would continue to tell throughout the night, we had Daniel Bryan backstage with Kayla Braxton, talks about how the Fiend can't break him, and then appears on the screen behind him is Ramblin' Rabbit from the Firefly Funhouse. Ramblin' Rabbit, who has died, I think at this point, 5 million times. I might be wrong. But he says to Daniel Bryan that the Fiend can be beat, he can be hurt, and he says the Fiend is beatable. And he says that he knows the Fiend has a secret. And he says the Fiend's secret is... And just as he's about to tell Daniel Bryan, he gets grabbed by Bray Wyatt, who says snitches get stitches, laughs, and then says, let me in. So, obviously, that is the question, isn't it, going into the Royal Rumble? What is the Fiend's secret? Maybe it's, I don't know, without the red light, he mounts like the witch out of The Wizard of Oz. Maybe his secret is Seth Rollins matches, because they went really, 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 really well, didn't they? I mean, realistically, what could the Fiend's secret be? I think his secret could potentially be... I mean, it's a difficult one to think. It could definitely keep you guessing. I'm not sure. What do you think the Fiend's secret is? Let us know in the comments below. I'd like to see what you think of that one. But that wasn't all we were going to get from this story tonight. We had Daniel Bryan walking around backstage. He walks into the dressing room and then he sees a box gift wrapped on a stool. At first I thought Mandy Rose had baked another cake and she's just leaving those around at this point, but it wasn't. It was a gift from Bray Wyatt himself. Daniel Bryan opens it up and then he sees Ramblin' Rabbit there, all bloody with a piece of his head missing. So at this point, in 2020, in WWE, the superstars themselves aren't allowed to blade and get colour, but Ramblin' Rabbit, a puppet, is. Let's just think about that one for a second. Okay. It's more mind games of Bray Wyatt. Like I said in the opener, I was a bit, after the show, a bit like, well, they didn't really do much of this story. Obviously, they hinted that the Fiend has a secret and blah, blah, blah. It would have maybe been nice to have Bryan have a match or something like that, but I think there's not a lot left to tell of this story. They've set it up nicely for the Rumble. It's the rematch, you know. Daniel Bryan had the transformation of his appearance, and it's a different Daniel Bryan that's facing... that faced the Fiend at Survivor Series. So they've told the story that they really want to tell, and there's not a lot left to do. The only problem would be that the Royal Rumble's, 2-3 weeks away? You know, there's TV to fill, which would explain this whole what is the Fiend's secret. So I'm interested to see what the Fiend's secret is, and what effect that secret will have on him as he transitions into facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Daniel Bryan, spoiler alert, isn't going to win the Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble. I would be stunned. But, like I said, my only concern at this point is I feel like they've told the whole story that they want to tell, and there's not a lot left to tell. And, you know, you've got 2-3 weeks that you need to tell something. Now, we have my favourite part of the show, which was the continuation of the Mandy Rose and Otis saga, or love story, whatever you want to call it. I think it's phenomenal. So to start off, we had Fire and Desire backstage. Sonya Deville was talking about their tag team, said we need to focus on the tag team. Starts with Mandy Rose's match. 2020's our year, blah, blah, blah. Mandy Rose isn't listening at this point. She said, look, sorry, I need to take care of something. And she has a box. What is in the box? Obviously, whatever's going to come out of that box is going to be over, right, Jim Cornette? I mean, if you've never heard that story, Google it. It's amazing. Backstage, you see Otis with Tucker, Heavy Machinery, and Mandy Rose comes up to her. She says, I want to apologise. She said, it might not be as good as your mum's cake, but hey, here you go. She hands Otis a cake which says, I'm sorry, that also, I realised after the fact, has a tiny little digger on there, or whatever, to say, Heavy Machinery, get it? But yeah, it's a cake that Mandy made, and Otis is pulling all these faces, looking at Mandy Rose. Honestly, my words will never do it justice, but it's just, it's gripping. It's gripping. I love it. I love Otis. I think he's hilarious. His facials, he is hilarious. His work is hilarious. He is the walking GIF. He is the living meme, whatever you want to call him. Every time he's on the screen or he's in the ring, I laugh or I'm into it. You can't look away. And it's not car crash, I can't look away. I can't look away because it's funny. I think this is the best storyline going on SmackDown. I genuinely do. You also had a little bit of Tucker in the background going, hey, Otis, I wouldn't trust Mandy. I wouldn't trust Mandy. Now, I'll touch on that in a second. But we had a match, which was Mandy Rose versus Alexa Bliss. Sonya Deville distracts Bliss and kicks out Nikki Cross, who's obviously at ringside with Alexa Bliss. And now, the match itself, I might get some criticism from the Alexa Bliss stans out there, but the match was awful. Honestly, the match itself, if they didn't have the post-match, I'd have been all over this, saying it was terrible. The in-ring work was sloppy. They needed their strikes, their kicks, everything needs to be a lot more snug, because, I mean, it was like bad movie choreography at some points. So this match is going on, and then out comes Otis with his cake in the middle of the match. The crowd pops big. Alexa gets distracted. Mandy Rose rolls her up, and she gets the win. Otis then eats the cake and looks at Mandy Rose so seductively. He's flipping his tongue around everywhere. He's licking the cake. He's shoving it in his mouth. The match was awful, and the in-ring work was awful, and it actually really sucked. But the post-match was hilarious. If you haven't seen the GIFs of this, go on social media, go on Twitter, or just go find this segment, because it was hilarious. Otis is a national treasure, and can actually... my faith in him went so up after this match, because I went, he can resurrect anything. That match was awful, but I don't care about the match. I care about the post-match, and Otis came out, and he made it amazing. He made that a moment that you can also always tell how popular or how well something has gone over with its reaction on social media, right? And as soon as the match ended, all you saw on social media was the Otis gif of him eating the cake, him pulling the faces at Mandy and all this sort of stuff. It's great. It's great. Otis is great. His work is phenomenal. And like I said, he resurrected what was a god-awful match with the best storyline going in WWE today. And that proves that it's not always about what's going on in the ring, it's about the character and the story that they're telling. And Otis is a character. Otis is a character that I want to see every week, and I always want to see what he does. So we had Elias come out once again. He sung his song, The Road to the Rumble. Talks about something being worse than a Lana and Lashley sex tape. He says that with Brock Lesnar being in the Rumble, it's easy to hide behind that opinion because Brock, you're never here. He says the difference between him and Brock is that Elias has a personality and he's not afraid to talk, which Brock is. Obviously, all of these Elias songs are meant to be burns, aren't they? And they're meant to be, oh God, I can't believe he said that. They are as edgy as WWE is going to get nowadays, to be honest. And they are fun. At certain points, they are funny. The crowd gets into him. The crowd starts clapping along. He's going to be in the Royal Rumble, but he needs to be wrestling soon, because you can't do this every week. This is going to wear thin. Obviously, his whole gimmick is a rip-off of The Rock doing the guitar, what they used to call them, rock concerts, didn't they? That's Elias's gimmick, and it is good. He does it really well, but Elias does his best work when he's also in the ring. And to be honest, in my opinion, Elias does his best work as a heel. They've had him as a babyface a couple of times. It's never just worked for me. I always think he did his gimmick of talking trash, hitting some people with the guitar. That's all very heely, isn't it? I mean, you think of arguably one of the most heel reactions ever in the last few years is when he was in Seattle and he mocked them not having an NFL team or something like that. I don't know that much about American football, but the crowd went crazy at him. They were not happy with him when he did that. That shows where he's at his peak. So these segments are fine. They do feel a bit like filler, and people will say, well, it gets Elias over, but Elias is already over. He can carry on. He just needs to work, and I think you can tell that, or it would appear in his eyes that his heart's not really in it, because he wants to work. He wants to have something more substantial, have him in a feud with someone or something. Something more is needed at this point. So we were meant to have Lacey Evans going up against Sasha Banks, but Sasha Banks would not appear. Lacey Evans came out and Sasha Banks' music played and no Sasha Banks. Bayley appeared on the Titantron, says Sasha is AWOL. She said she's not even here. She said that Sasha made a last-minute commitment in LA. She got some studio time that came up and booked it in to finish off her upcoming rap album. And Bayley says the only reason that she's here is because she's a role model. Lacey Evans calls out Bayley. Bayley calls her an overbearing mother, and she doesn't care about Lacey Evans' snot-nosed kid. Lacey Evans storms backstage, and then Bayley attacks Lacey because, of course, Lacey Evans is now a dumb babyface. Why you would just walk backstage, and then get attacked. That's what wrestling 101, isn't it? Stuff like that. The babyfaces are stupid, heels are smart. So Bayley attacks her and then says, "Go put your mum jeans on and go home," and goes to walk off, and Lacey just gets back up and attacks her. A ref breaks it up. It was just a really weird segment. I'm always one that I don't like people not following through as advertised. If Sasha Banks isn't there, don't promote for a week. Remember, they told us last week that Sasha Banks was going to face Lacey Evans, so they promoted for 7 days that Sasha's going to be there. If I was the crowd, I would be livid. I mean, like, stuff like that really bothers me. Don't advertise it. And I know they all say our card subject to change, blah, blah, blah. Just don't advertise it. Remember last year they had the Royal Rumble, it was going to be Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman, and the last minute they changed it to Finn Balor. Obviously, that, if anything, that's a better match, but at the time they were like, oh yeah, we know that Braun isn't able to compete, blah, 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 but we thought we'd do it to sell tickets. That's just... that I know it's at the end of the day it's a business, but that's just dodgy stuff, it's slapping your audience in the face. I've enjoyed Lacey Evans as a babyface. I wasn't a massive fan of her heel character. I liked her heel character on social media, on Twitter, which was great on social media, but her promos recently in terms of being a babyface I think have been a lot better. The crowd seemed to be really resonated with Lacey Evans. They've bought into her being a mother. I think she used to be a Marine as well, or she used to be in the US Forces. So I've enjoyed her babyface work. This whole feud, I don't know. The Bayley heel turn for me has just felt quite stale. Sasha feels like the biggest star out of those two at this point, and it feels like a Sasha Banks versus Bayley match is inevitable for WrestleMania. I just don't know if you'd want to turn either one as a babyface this quickly after you turn both of them heel. Both of them have been a heel, 6 months? So are they going to really turn one babyface again soon? I don't know. It wouldn't make any sense, really, would it? We had Braun Strowman facing Shinsuke Nakamura, the Intercontinental Champion. Sami Zayn dancing during Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance is absolutely tremendous. I mean, it's one of the highlights of my week. He is so over the top as a manager and as a heel. I think it's great. Cesaro sent Braun Strowman into the post. Nakamura kicked Strowman into the timekeeper area, which was nice. Nakamura worked over Strowman for the majority of the match. Sami Zayn started chanting Braun Strowman to get these hands, which was just, tremendous. Sami Zayn is tremendous. It's awesome. Strowman had a bloody nose at this point. It might have been after one of Nakamura's kicks throughout the match. But he does a hot comeback. Cesaro gets in the ring with a chair. Strowman throws out Cesaro. Sami Zayn throws Nakamura the Intercontinental Championship. He goes to hit Braun Strowman. Strowman ducks, power slam, and then he pins Nakamura. Strowman has now pinned the Intercontinental Champion. So it would appear that this Intercontinental Championship match between the both is happening. Post-match, he holds up the Intercontinental Championship, raises it above his head, but Sami Zayn runs through the ring and rips it out of his hand to give it to Nakamura. So like I said, I feel like a match here is happening at the Royal Rumble for the title. And, Strowman has... how can Strowman lose this? He has to win it. He has to win the title. He can't fail. He's failed every time else. He's failed to win the Universal Championship like a million times from Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and whoever. So if he loses this, he might as well be dead. Just think of the momentum that Braun Strowman had at one point. His character was so hot, so over with the audience. And now he feels lukewarm at best because we've seen him lose so many times. He's not a believable force of nature at all, is he? We saw him lose to Seth Rollins earlier on in September of 2019. We saw him lose to Lesnar a million times. We've seen him lose to Roman Reigns for the title. In your head now, even as the most casual fan, you can't believe that Strowman is this credible threat because he hasn't won enough big matches. End of. Period. End of sentence. If he loses this, he might as well retire. Now, I don't think he will. I think this is their attempt to build Strowman back up after how they've decimated his character. So I would expect him to win the Intercontinental Championship at the Royal Rumble and actually have a major singles title for the first time in his career. He needs it, and he just can't lose. The match itself, I thought was fine. I thought it was good. The crowd was into it. I think they'll go longer, obviously, at the Royal Rumble, and there'll be more bells and whistles in terms of having Cesaro and Sami Zayn interfere in the match. So I think that match will be even better than this one. But I'm excited to see perhaps Strowman actually win a major title. Like I said, I think his character needs it. I still don't know if his best work should be as a babyface. I always think he's better as this big dominating heel. But I said at this point, I think it's just patchwork on his character, considering it's just been annihilated by bad booking over the last few years. Finally, we had a backstage promo from Sheamus, obviously, who returned last week. He calls Shorty G, Chad Gable, a little rat, mocks the rise before size quote that Shorty G did a few weeks ago, and appropriately so. It's a god-awful saying. He says that he nearly kicked Shorty G's head off and he didn't rise last week, did he? Which is a great point. Calls Shorty G a vermin that has infested SmackDown. Small isn't something to be embraced, it's something to be exterminated and crushed. He says he's going to prove that size does matter. This might as well have been a promo directly from Vince McMahon's mouth or brain. It felt like you might as well have had Vince McMahon talking here. But I thought it was a good promo. Slightly annoying that there was no Sheamus in person in ring action after his return last week. I expect Sheamus to go over Shorty G in this feud. To me, this is Sheamus's last big run. I mean, he's, 40 now? 41? He is in his prime physically, but he's had a lot of injuries. We know that he suffers from spinal stenosis, so it would appear that his days in the ring are numbered, and they do have a limit on them. He has a short window of time to make that big main event money, and I think he's going to try and do it. I think another big heel Sheamus run would be nice. I think he's improved in the ring and on the mic significantly since he had that last big heel singles run in 2015, where it probably wasn't the right time for him. So I like it. I wasn't always the biggest Sheamus fan. I wasn't a fan of him being a babyface world champion, as I thought he was just the biggest heel going when he was a world champion. So I'm all for this Sheamus return to his original character. Like I said, I think he's improved greatly in the ring and on the mic since then. So I think he can be a real asset to the SmackDown brand. It's a bit heel heavy, to be honest, SmackDown, in terms of the main event scene. He would almost do better on Raw as that main event in the heel scene. But we'll have to see. Like I said, the shame out of it would be that I don't think Shorty G is going to fare well in this feud, as they're going to be building up Sheamus. But what did you think of the show? Let us know your thoughts on tonight's episode in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Once we get to that magic number of 1,000 subscribers, we'll be able to do live reviews of every show and really get you, our great followers, more involved in our reviews. Don't forget, you can follow WrestleNews 365 in all of our social media platforms on the screen right now. Twitter, that's at 365Wrestle. Facebook at WrestleNews365, Instagram at WrestleNews365, TikTok, we're at WrestleNews365, and Storyfire, we're at WrestleNews365. Just go on any social media platform, type in WrestleNews365, and you will find us there. You can also visit our website, WrestleNews365.com, for all the very latest news, reviews, exclusive series, and much more. You can also support WrestleNews365 by purchasing our merchandise. Visit WN365merch.com. That's WN365merch.com for all of our merch and apparel. If you do purchase an item, be sure to post it on social media so we can share it with all of our followers. We really do appreciate all your support with all of our merchandise that you purchase. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you've come across this video today. We really appreciate it, and I'll speak with you again very soon.